in that particular category, if you like, who were killed. And the most tragic thing about it, of course, was that they were going to cover the first of those 2 explosions. 9 of them got caught up then in that second explosion when they were just essentially trying to do their jobs and gather the facts. Of course, all of the deaths tragic in an equal measure. But the lists of the names being read out by various people on social media. Reporters Without Borders also paying homage to them and trying to contextualize this and explain the extent to which it's a particularly catastrophic incident. This is Christophe Deloire of Reporters Without Borders. The second bombing in Kabul targeted reporters who covered the first one. At least 8 journalists have been killed. We now know it was 9 and 2 injured. The worst slaughter in Afghanistan since the beginning of the war in 2001. So it's really shocking day of violence
36
there.
journalists killed in Afghanistan since 2016.
That's right. It's just it's extraordinary. Now, I suppose one little positive glimmer about all of this is the homage being paid to many of these journalists, but one in particular in the French media is getting a lot of attention. That's Shah Marai of the AFP, and it's true that he was really just an extraordinarily gifted photographer. He had a really amazing eye. That's what the headline here says in the Huffington Post, a magnificent eye. And you can see photos like this one showing women wearing the burqa, but then with a colour-coordinated mobile phone and, peeking under the burqa to, her maybe civilian clothes underneath, so to speak. It's a very... I think,
rather than the dehumanising pictures that you see so often.
That's right, and I suppose a photo that symbolises as well the changes that are accompanying the lack of change in some regards for women who were forced to wear the burqa. This is a video that kind of goes through a lot of, again, his more notable photographs, a selection of his work, and indeed he really had, as I said, and as the Huffington Post said and a lot of the media said, an extraordinary eye. Somebody who was able to kind of zero in on elements of beauty at times and joy in the midst of tragedy, or just a sort of a stark beauty where there is no joy to be perceived at all. And indeed, of course, reporting on Afghanistan over the last 10, 15 years, it wasn't positive news that you were talking about for the most part. And actually, if you look at, they have a blog on the AFP website. In French, it's known as the Making of blog. In English, correspondent.afp.com. Often very gripping portrayals of things that are happening on the ground from the reporters, from the photographers, when hope is gone. So you can see there what he was really thinking of the context. This just written some time ago. That's a photo of him where he had to wear a mandatory beard. This was when the Taliban were still in control. And he spoke here about a brief time of hope. You can see it at the top. So he's kind of cataloguing what happened since the fall of the Taliban and all that has happened since. It was a time of great hope, the golden years, no fighting in the city. You could travel anywhere, south, west, east. Everything felt safe. And of course, we know that that did change. The attack started in Kabul, targeting places frequented by foreigners. The party was over. And you can see a photo there illustrating the fact that people were just in utter despair, of course, in the midst of all these attacks. You can see there one image of an Afghan father, an Afghan man rather, who lost his father and weeping as a result of that. And just he finishes that blog by saying, I have never felt life to have so little prospects, and I don't see a way out. It's a time of anxiety. And it's incredibly sad, really, that he catalogued all of that, and then it was bookended or ended by him being caught up in it. So it really depicts the despair that is at large.
Phenomenal photographs, and what a shame that that's the reason we're talking about them today. Yeah. Very sad indeed. Okay, let's just talk very briefly then about this tree then that the French President Emmanuel Macron was over planting in the US last week.
Seems rather missing. It seems rather insignificant because it was window dressing. It was tree diplomacy, etc. But it did get a lot of attention last week.
Was this to make up for pulling out of the Paris Accords? Or?
Well, there was so much speculation, right? Well, there was this photo anyway that went completely viral and everybody was riffing off it and Photoshop of it because it did look like an album cover or a series. It was quite an extraordinary photo. But the tree has disappeared. And everybody was kind of going, what in the name of goodness has gone on here? You don't just rip out a a diplomatic gift and throw it in the skip, because that's what people were speculating on, of course.
Who knows these days? I don't know.
But that's it. People don't know nowadays.
Could be on the fireplace at the White House.
Could be anywhere. Could be, exactly. So this was a Reuters photographer who spotted a bit of yellow kind of grass where the tree had been. And, of course, then all sorts of speculation, just a patch of yellow sod where once diplomacy feebly tried to take root.
Do you know?
Okay, well, what happened was it was, for quarantine purposes, dug up. This was actually the French ambassador to the US who had to clarify the situation. He said it's in quarantine, which is mandatory for any living organism imported to the US. It will be replanted afterwards. He was doing a Trump on it, tweeting at around 1 a.m, trying to explain to people that this was not an act of vicious revenge after the Congress speech, right? Anyway, we don't really know, but that's the official explanation.
Okay, James,
and it will be back.
Thanks for clearing that up.